Arif?
It's Bilal here.
It is Bilal.
It is Bilal.
So I've been giving the wrong information.
Yes.
Apologies.
That's all right.
So, Mr. Bilal, Mr. Bilal, thank you for joining us on the show. You, of course, you're serving in the National Outreach Department for the UK, for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
Yes.
My first question is, should a woman be forced to shake the hand of a man and vice versa if he does not wish to do so?
Okay, first of all, assalamu alaikum wa barakatuhu, jazakallah, and thank you for having me. To answer your question, not at all. I mean, if we see around, people of different faiths and cultures have different norms when it comes to greeting each other. For example, in Hindu culture, people usually greet each other by pressing their hands together. In Japanese culture, you see that people usually greet each other by bowing.
Right.
And Maori culture, for example, people traditionally, greet each other by touching each other's noses and foreheads. People of Maasai culture usually greet each other by their elaborate jumping dance. So here in the West as well, for example, people tend to greet each other in different ways. Some people like to shake hands. Some like to kiss the cheek of the other person. And when it comes to kissing the cheek, that also, varies from person to person. Some people do it once, some people do it twice. And then you've got some people who don't like to shake hands as well. They would just say hello or hi or good morning, good afternoon, and they won't shake your hands.
Indeed.
And in the same way, in Muslim tradition, what we usually do is we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, peace be upon you. This is how we greet each other. And people of the same gender would usually shake each other's hands, often, and embrace each other as well. But people of opposite gender, they usually avoid any form of physical contact, including handshake.
Right.
So what I'm trying to, point out here is that, people of different cultures have got different ways of greeting each other. And if we start to force people to behave in one single manner, I think we'll all be in a very difficult situation. And if we come to the Islamic teaching, Islamic principle on this, the Quran is very clear, la ikraha fi din, there is no compulsion in religion. So everybody should be free to follow their religious ways and traditions without being discriminated against for it in any way.
So what do you think, why is this such a big issue right now?
I think it is due to the misconceptions that revolve around the topic of Islam and Muslims generally, and I think it is the misunderstanding of why Islam has these practices in place. So, for example, if we talk about this particular issue, what is the wisdom behind not shaking hands?
Right.
It is a tradition which is basically it stems from Islamic teaching of parda, which is veiling, or segregation between the sexes. So we see that segregation exists in all spheres of public life. Here in the Western societies as well. In schools, in hospitals, in prisons and in gyms, for example, we see segregated settings. So it seems that unfortunately when it comes to, when Islam upholds these same principles of parda and segregation and veiling, this is when Muslims are usually accused of, disrespecting or, of inequality or backwardness. The fact of the matter is that the commandment of parda is for both men and women. It is for the betterment of society at large. Any form of physical contact between opposite genders is discouraged in Islam. And that includes shaking of hands. It has got nothing to do with disrespecting the other person. Actually, quite the opposite. It is sort of, a preventative measure. We hear this saying, prevention is better than cure. And that's exactly the purpose behind it. It is sort of a preventative measure for both men and women to maintain higher standards of good behavior, modesty, purity, and chastity. So, and especially I want to mention here that in an age when you've got these campaigns like Me Too campaign, and we have more and more cases of sexual harassment against women coming to light in all spheres of public life in the West. I think these Islamic teachings now make better sense than ever before. And if anything, people should appreciate these beautiful teachings that truly uphold the honor and dignity of women more than anything else.
Yes, Bilal, I mean, going back to the vantage point of the French government over this issue, the government that denied the Algerian woman's naturalizations, they say that she was not assimilated for avoiding this symbolic ritual. In your opinion, does the issue of handshake define integration?
No, I think before that, it is important, in my personal opinion, this is an extremely sad case of state-backed Islamophobia in France. Because France is supposed to be the flag bearer of upholding freedom of speech and expression. But it seems that, these values of respecting other person's way of life takes a U-turn when it comes to Muslims, and in particular Muslim women. They are forced to dress in a certain way against their own wishes, and now a mere act of choosing not to shake hands with the stranger of opposite gender has become so offensive that the Muslim woman has been denied French citizenship. I think this is, I want to be, straightforward. I think, to me, this is the kind of mentality you see in the likes of Taliban, who also want to force women to dress in a certain way or, behave in a certain manner against their wishes. To answer your question, it reminds me of a speech that was made by our beloved Hazur, Khalifa and head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, at the opening of a mosque. I think it was probably in Germany. And Hazur, mentioned that a female journalist who came to attend the function, I think she also asked the same question. Why is it that she can't shake hands with Hazur or the men there? And in answer to that, Hazur first advised the Ahmadi Muslims strongly that we should explain to our guests about our norms beforehand. So if we invite them to our mosques or to our functions, it is important that we brief them about our own traditions and norms to save everyone from unnecessary embarrassment and misunderstanding. And after that, Hazur mentioned that every culture has their own ways and norms when it comes to greeting each other. And it has got nothing to do with showing disrespect to the other person. And Hazur went on to say that, if that lady is in need of any help, he'll be the first person to go out to help her. So he said the true respect is in the heart. And then Hazur explained that these little outward gestures of shaking hands, etc., don't really define integration. True integration is about loving your country with all your heart and to work for its progress with full sincerity and honesty. And that is true integration. And to answer your question, this is exactly my response to your question as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much for your input. Okay.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Thank you. All right.